Hello everyone. Today we will be talking about protein energy malnutrition. Okay. The protein energy malnutrition, it is one of the nutritional problem of public health importance in India. The other problems are anemia, vitamin A deficiency and iodine deficiency disorders. These are the major public health problems related to nutrition in India. So out of these, today we will talk about malnutrition. So what is this malnutrition? Malnutrition, it is a pathological state characterized by relative or absolute deficiency or excess of one or more of the nutrients. Remember, it is relative or absolute deficiency or excess. It is not like just deficiency. Okay. So the types of malnutrition, there are broadly two types. One is deficiency disorders and second one is disorders due to excess of the nutrients. In deficiency disorder, it can be vitamin deficiency or energy deficiency or protein deficiency. Okay. And disorders due to excess nutrients, for example, obesity. So the protein energy malnutrition. So actually it is energy malnutrition, you can say. The energy deficiency is there and the role of proteins is minimal, but even in our diet the protein is well above the 10% in Indian diet. So the diet is grossly deficient in calories and not in proteins. The absolute intake of protein, you can say it is adequate or marginally deficient. Okay. So how much is the problem of protein energy malnutrition? So worldwide, 45% of deaths among under 5 children are due to malnutrition. That is due to protein energy malnutrition. Okay. Here we are talking about deficiency disorder in case of malnutrition. Okay. And not the excess of nutrient. And in India, it is one of the highest ranking country in the world for number of malnourished children, that is number of undernourished children. Here almost 45% of children under 3 years of age, they are stunted, that is they have low height for their age. Then 23% are wasted, that is they have low weight for height, and 40% are underweight, means their weight is lower than the corresponding age. And in India, the most affected states are Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, Bihar and Chhattisgarh, whereas Mizoram has the lowest number of underweight children, that is about 21%. Okay. Now starting with the agent factors, the poor diet. So the diet which is deficient in calories or deficient in energy, that will lead to protein energy malnutrition. Then next agent factor is fetal nutrition. That is undernutrition in fetal life, especially in the last trimester of pregnancy, is responsible for the protein energy malnutrition among children. There is a intergeneration cycle of undernutrition. Like if the girl child is undernourished, it will be a she will be a undernourished mother, and she will deliver a low birth weight baby, and the cycle will continue. So this is the intergeneration cycle of undernutrition, that is very important. So we have to prevent that. Okay. So the children who are at high risk of malnutrition, these are low birth weight baby, low birth weight, that is birth weight less than 2.5 kg, which is the result of intergeneration cycle of malnutrition, just we have seen in previous slide. Okay. The next high risk child is girl child, because in India there is gender bias. The boy child is preferred over the girl child. So girl child is neglected, and the severe form of malnutrition is seen in girl children. Okay, and girls are poorly fed and cared for compared to boys. So again, this is the high risk group. Then children under 2 years of age. Here, poor infant young child feeding practices are responsible for the malnutrition. And again, late initiation of breastfeeding and complementary feeding. The next high risk group is young children with repeated illness, that is repeated infections. Here, due to poor caring and inadequate health care, inappropriate feeding during illness and poor hygiene and sanitation, it leads to the malnutrition among young children. Okay. Next, coming to the host factors, here age. Usually children under 5 years of age are at the risk of protein energy malnutrition. Then gender, just we have seen, girl child is more susceptible than boy child. Then larger family size. In larger family, what happens? There is poor response to a child's feeding, care and health seeking behavior, which puts the child at risk of malnutrition. Then coming to the socio-economic status, the poor socio-economic status causes the protein energy malnutrition, where there is poor housing and hygiene, then poor sanitation facilities are there. Because of that, child is susceptible for various infections leading to protein energy malnutrition. Then lack of medical facilities and inadequate access to the nutritious food. The next is termination of breastfeeding. So it affects both ways. If there is early termination of breastfeeding, means before 6 months, it compels the mother to feed the baby with low nutrient, diluted food and unhygienic formula, which may lead to malnutrition. And if there is late termination, it will deprive the child of early timely institution of weaning. Okay. Then the next factor is ignorance of nutritional needs of the child by mother, because as age increases, the activity of the child increase and that requires the more nutrition. But it may happen that mother may ignore the nutritional need, increasing nutritional need of the child. Then faulty complementary feeding practices like using diluted formula or less in nutrients, like less energy diet, that will lead to malnutrition. And various infections, which are the common infections are diarrhea, measles, acute respiratory infections and worm infestations. These are the most common infections among children and they may lead to protein energy malnutrition. Okay. Then the next point in epidemiology of protein energy malnutrition is environmental factors. Here, the physical environment. For example, in case of rural area, most of the time there is open air defecation. The surroundings are unhygienic. There is inadequate hand washing facility. Then non-availability of potable water and poor garbage disposal facilities, which leads to or which puts the child at the risk of infections in turn, which results in malnutrition. Then various socio-cultural factors are there, like unscientific food habits are there, various customs are there, beliefs and traditions like discarding the colostrum, then poor breastfeeding and weaning practices, it leads to malnutrition. Then food production, it can be a real or created. Then availability of basic services, if there is non-availability of basic services like immunization, basic health care, water and sanitation, it leads to malnutrition. Okay, so this completes the epidemiology of protein energy malnutrition. Okay. Now, what are the various types of classification of this protein energy malnutrition? So, Gomez classification is there, Indian Association of Pediatric, that is IAP classification is there. Then next one is Waterloo's classification and Kwashiorkor and Marasmus classification of protein energy malnutrition is there. But we will focus on other type of classification, that is classification based on weight for height using WHO growth charts. Okay, so this is classification based on weight for height of the child using WHO growth charts. So based on this, malnutrition can be classified as severe acute malnutrition, that is SAM, and moderate acute malnutrition, that is MAM. Okay, so this is based on WHO growth charts, weight for height of the child. So what are the criteria or how we are going to classify the child, whether it is having severe acute malnutrition or moderate acute malnutrition? So the diagnostic criteria of WHO and UNICEF are: for severe acute malnutrition, if the weight for height of the child, if it is below -3 standard deviation of the median WHO growth reference. Remember, weight for height below -3 standard deviation of the median WHO growth reference. This is the first criteria. Then second, if there is visible severe wasting. Then third one, presence of bipedal edema, bipedal pitting edema. And fourth criteria for diagnosing it as severe acute malnutrition is mid upper arm circumference, that is MUAC, if it is less than 115 millimeter or less than 11.5 centimeter. So these are the four criteria for SAM, that is weight for height below -3 standard deviation, then visible severe wasting, then presence of bipedal edema, and fourth one, mid upper arm circumference less than 11.5 centimeter. Okay. The next is moderate acute malnutrition. We will classify the child as moderate malnutrition if weight for height Z score is less than -2 standard deviation but more than -3 standard deviation. Means the weight for height, if it is between -2 standard deviation and -3 standard deviation, we will classify the child as moderate acute malnutrition. And second criteria, if mid upper arm circumference is between 11.5 to 12.5 centimeter. Okay. So one of the criteria for diagnosis of SAM or MAM we have seen as mid upper arm circumference. So this mid upper arm circumference, it is measured with the help of this MUAC tape, or also called as Shakir tape. Okay. So it has three colors: red, yellow and green color. As you can see here, red color, yellow color and green color. So the red color, it is less than 11.5 centimeter. Then yellow color is between 11.5 to 12.5 centimeter, and more than 12.5 centimeter, it is green colored. Okay. So here, if The mid upper arm circumference, if it is less than 11.5 centimeter, means in red zone, it means the child is having severe acute malnutrition. If the mid upper arm circumference of the child is between 11.5 to 12.5 centimeter, then the child is having moderate acute malnutrition. And if the mid upper arm circumference is more than 12.5 centimeter, then the child is having adequate nutrition. Okay. So here, this is the method. Here the health worker is checking for the or measuring the mid upper arm circumference of the child, which is taken at the left arm. And in the second picture, you can see here the red colored zone, that is less than 11.5 centimeter of mid upper arm circumference. It is malnourished child. Yellow, between 11.5 to 12.5 centimeter. 11.5 to 12.5 centimeter. It is moderate malnutrition, and more than 12.5 centimeter of mid upper arm circumference means nutrition is okay. Okay. So this is the method for measuring the mid upper arm circumference using Shakir tape. So the Shakir tape, it can be one of the spot in your exam. Like you have to identify and write its uses, or give diagnosing criteria for Sam and Ma'am. Okay. Now how to prevent and control the protein energy malnutrition. Okay. So first of all, health promotion is basic key for the prevention of protein energy malnutrition. Here, good antenatal care, because the fetal nutrition is one of the agent factor for malnutrition. So you have to give good antenatal care. Then education on food, hygiene and balanced diet to ANC mother as well as PNC mother. Then education on the importance of colostrum and diet during lactation. Again, the integrated child development services are there. In that, good nutrition, immunization, education, hygiene and sanitation related measures are there. Then promotion of breastfeeding and improvement of family diet, appropriate and adequate complementary feeding, that is weaning. Then prevention and control of infections by using hygienic practices or following hygienic practices, and family planning practices which will help to keep the gap, adequate gap between two children, which will help to adequately nourish the first child. Okay. Next, specific protection like improvement or improve the diet, which should be protein and energy rich. Then proper weaning. Also you have to include vegetables and fruits, which will avoid the vitamin deficiencies. Then immunizing the child as per the age, as per the national immunization schedule. Okay. Then early diagnosis and treatment. Here, growth monitoring with the help of growth charts, which is done in Anganwadi center, that should be continued. And based on this, there should be a early diagnosis of the SAM cases. We can diagnose it earlier with the help of growth chart. Then early diagnosis and treatment of various infections. Here the health worker should be trained about the warning signs, and the health worker should be trained for how to check the growth chart of the child. Then again, mother should be made aware of the signs and symptoms of common infections like diarrhea, measles, acute respiratory infections, etc. And again, mother should be taught about the ORS preparation and use of it during diarrhea. Okay. And next one is medical advice. So for some children, we are admitting the child and giving the facility based treatment. Okay. So coming to the treatment, so WHO and UNICEF have recommended two major approaches for the treatment of SAM patients. SAM is severe acute malnutrition. So these two approaches are, first one is facility based or inpatient treatment of severe acute malnutrition, and second approach is community based management of the SAM children. So when we are admitting the child or when we are giving facility based treatment, so if there is presence of acute medical complications in children, and if there is presence of edema and poor appetite, so if these three criteria are there, then we'll give facility based treatment. And if there are no medical complications and appetite of the child is good, then we will give community based treatment. Okay. So this is the management protocol for the protein energy malnutrition. So first of all, for the child we will do appetite test. Okay, we'll see in the next slide how to do this appetite test. So based on the results of appetite test, if the child passes the appetite test and there are no medical complications, means appetite test is passed, means the child has good appetite, and if there are no medical complications, we will admit the child into the phase 2 of NRC. NRC is nutrition rehabilitation center. Okay, and this phase 2 is stabilization phase, and phase 2 is rehabilitation phase, and phase 1 is stabilization phase. Okay, so if appetite test is passed and the child is without any medical complication, so it will go in phase 2 of NRC. And if the appetite test is failed, means the child has poor appetite, or if the child is having any medical complication, so we will admit the child into phase 1 in NRC. Phase 1 is stabilization phase. Okay. Then in phase 2, we are giving treatment using F100, that is formula 100, and locally made special feed is given to the child. Okay. And after that, discharge the child from NRC. Usually 14 to 21 days stay in NRC is there. After that, if the child is with good appetite and no medical complications, we will discharge the child, and 4 follow-ups at the 15 days interval are advised. Okay, and then we'll discharge the child from the program at 15% weight gain over the admission weight. That is, within 60 days, if the child gets 15% of weight gain over the admission weight, then we will discharge it from the program. Okay, this is for phase 2. Okay, and if the child with poor appetite and medical complication, we have admitted that child in phase 1. So in phase 1, that is in stabilization phase, we are starting with formula 75 feed, that is F75 feed, which is also called as starter formula. Okay, and after that, if the appetite returns and there is reduction of edema, then it will enter to the transition phase, where we will start F100, that is formula 100 or special feed. And then if good appetite and no edema, then the child will enter in the phase 2, that is rehabilitation phase. Okay, and if it returns back to the loss of appetite and increase in edema, then again it will enter to phase 1 and we will repeat the F75 feed and treat the complications. Okay, and again if the child from phase 2 falls in the complication like reduction in appetite or development of complications, then it will enter the phase 1. Okay, so this is the management protocol for the protein energy malnutrition. So we'll see what is this appetite test and how to do that. Okay, so appetite, the poor appetite occurs with significant metabolic disturbance or because of intoxication or because of infection, or there can be liver disease. Okay, so these are the causes of poor appetite, and this is often the only sign of severe metabolic malnutrition and physiological decompensation. Means if the child is having poor appetite, this can be the only warning sign of the malnutrition, and the good appetite indicates that these conditions are not present and not very severe. Okay, so to perform the appetite test, we have to prepare appetite test feed, or also called as special feed. So how to prepare it? So you have to take 1000 gram, that is 1 kg of roasted groundnut, and grind them in mixture. Then grind the sugar, almost 1120 gram of sugar separately or with roasted groundnut. Then mix all these, that is groundnut, sugar and milk powder, around 1200 gram of the milk powder, and coconut oil. So for preparing the special feed, we need roasted groundnut, milk powder, sugar and coconut oil. Then you have to grind it and mix it and store it in a airtight container and prepare for only for 1 week to ensure the quality of the feed, or also you can store it in a refrigerator. Okay, now next is how to perform the appetite test. So for conducting the appetite test, you have to choose separate quiet area, then explain the procedure of the appetite test to the mother or the caretaker, then ask her to wash her hands to maintain the hygiene, then ask her to sit comfortably with the child on her lap and offer the special feed, that is the appetite test feed which we have prepared, and make sure that child should not have taken any food for the last 2 hours, because if the child has taken the food in last 2 hours, then it will affect the result of the appetite test. Okay, next, the child must not be forced to take the special feed or food offered. Means let the child take the feed on her or on his own preference, and the child is offered plenty of water to drink from a cup. As he or she is taking the special feed, he or she will require the water, and when the child has finished, we will measure the amount taken by the child. Okay, and based on that we will give the result as whether the child has passed the appetite test or failed the appetite test. Okay, now we'll see one video of this appetite test.
appetite testing techniques. Appetite is a very important indicator of the clinical situation of a patient. A poor appetite means that the child has a significant infection or a major metabolic abnormality, such as liver dysfunction, indicating the need to be admitted into an inpatient facility. Moreover, a child with poor appetite is unlikely to take the amount of ready-to-use therapeutic foods given to him or her as a weekly ration. The appetite test should be conducted in a separate, quiet area. Explain to the caretaker the purpose of the appetite test and how it will be carried out. The caretaker should wash their hands. The caretaker should sit comfortably with the child on his or her lap and should either offer the ready-to-use therapeutic foods from the packet or put a small amount on his or her finger and give it to the child. The caretaker should offer the child the ready-to-use therapeutic food gently, encouraging the child all the time. If the child refuses, then the caretaker should continue to quietly encourage the child and take time over the test. The test usually takes a short time, but may take up to 30 minutes. The child must not be forced to take the ready-to-use therapeutic food. The child needs to be offered plenty of water to drink from a cup, as he or she is taking the ready-to-use therapeutic food.
So, for giving the result of appetite test, that is interpretation of appetite test, this is one chart where to pass the appetite test, the intake of the test meal has to be at least in the moderate range. Okay, means if the child is having weight of 3 to 3.9 kg, then to pass the appetite test, the child has to take at least 15 to 20 gram of ready to use therapeutic food or the special feed which we have offered. So if he is taking this much amount of feed, then the child will pass the appetite test, and if it is less than or equal to 15 grams, then it will fail the appetite, and if it is more than 20 grams during the appetite test, then the appetite of the child is good. Okay. Let us see the management protocol according to appetite test result. Means if appetite test is passed, means if the child passes the appetite test and the child is without any medical complication, then the child will enter into the phase 2 in NRC, and if appetite test is failed and or if the child is having some of the complications, then it will enter the phase 1 in NRC. Okay. Now let us see what are the admission criteria to Nutritional Rehabilitation Center. Okay. So for a child in the age group of 6 months to 5 years, that is 6 months to 60 months of age, the criteria for admission in NRC are: first criteria is weight for height or weight for length if it is less than -3 standard deviation score. Weight for height or weight for length if it is less than -3 standard deviation score, and or if mid upper arm circumference is less than 11.5 centimeter, and or there is presence of bilateral pitting edema. So if these criteria are there, then we will classify the child as SAM, that is having severe acute malnutrition, and we will admit this child. Okay. If the child is less than 6 months of age, so the criteria for admission in NRC are: If there is problem of breastfeeding, that is the infant is too weak to suck, and or the mother has not enough milk, and or there is bilateral pitting edema, and or weight for length if it is less than -3 standard deviation score. Okay, so for the child of less than 6 months, the admission criteria are: if there is problem of breastfeeding, if mother has not enough milk, or bilateral pitting edema is there, or weight for length is less than -3 standard deviation score. Okay, so the children with these criteria we will admit it and give facility based treatment. Okay, so let us see one video for screening of severe acute malnutrition. Okay, here we will see how to check for pedal edema and how to measure the mid upper arm circumference and how to classify the child as a SAM or MAM. Okay.
It is very important that your first assessments of children are done carefully. You should take your time to do all the necessary steps during admission and keep appropriate records to enable smooth subsequent follow-up. Mid-upper arm circumference and edema detection are the most appropriate techniques to be used to detect severe acute malnutrition in a health post context. Weight is used to follow the progress of the admitted child and decide when to discharge him or her. Bilateral edema is a sign of severe malnutrition. Children with edema need to be in therapeutic feeding programs immediately. Only children with bilateral edema are recorded as having nutritional edema. In order to determine the presence of edema, normal thumb pressure is applied to both feet for 3 seconds. If a shallow print persists on both feet, then the child presents edema. Mid-upper arm circumference is an alternative measure of severe acute malnutrition in children. Take the following steps to measure the mid-upper arm circumference of a child. Ask the mother to remove clothing that may cover the child's left arm. If possible, the child should stand erect and sideways to the measurer. Estimate the midpoint of the left upper arm, straighten the child's arm, and wrap the tape around the arm at the midpoint. Make sure the numbers are right side up. Make sure the tape is flat around the skin. Inspect the tension of the tape on the child's arm. Make sure the tape has the proper tension and is not too tight or too loose. When the tape is in the correct position on the arm with correct tension, read and call out the measurement to the nearest 0.1 centimeter. Immediately record the measurement. Once you have determined that the child has severe acute malnutrition, you must check to make sure that they do not have additional complications and can be treated at your OTP.
So, after assessing the child as having SAM or MAM, we will proceed to treatment of malnutrition. Okay. So, treatment of malnutrition, it is completed in 2 phases. First one is stabilization phase and second one is rehabilitation phase. And there are 10 steps we have to follow in the treatment of malnutrition. Okay. So, first one is treatment of hypoglycemia, then treatment of hypothermia and treatment of dehydration. So, treating hypoglycemia, hypothermia and dehydration, we have to complete it in first 2 days of the stabilization phase. Okay. So, for the first 2 days, we will treat these 3 conditions. After that, treatment of electrolyte. Okay, that is treatment of electrolyte imbalance. We have to continue throughout the stabilization as well as rehabilitation phase. Okay. Then treatment of infection, we have to complete it within first week, means up to 7 days, first 7 days of stabilization phase we have to treat the infection if there is any underlying infection. Then treatment of micronutrients. So for first 7 days, that is in stabilization phase, don't give iron supplement. After that, in rehabilitation phase, whenever the child regains its appetite and is free from infections, then and then only we will start iron supplement. Okay. Then next step is cautious feeding. Here it should be followed in stabilization phase, that is up to 7 days. After that, rebuild tissue, that will be covered in rehabilitation phase. Then sensory stimulation, so you have to stimulate the child throughout stabilization as well as rehabilitation phase, and then prepare for follow during rehabilitation phase, that is after discharging the child from the NRC. Okay, so these are the 10 steps through which we will treat the malnutrition. Okay, stabilization phase and rehabilitation phase. Stabilization phase is for first 7 days, and after that week 2 to 6, means up to 6 weeks it is in rehabilitation phase. Okay, now we will see all the 10 steps one by one. So first step is treating the hypoglycemia. Now step 1 and 2, that is hypoglycemia and hypothermia. So hypoglycemia is defined by if the blood sugar level is less than 54 milligram per deciliter. Okay, then the child will be diagnosed as having hypoglycemia. Then hypothermia, if rectal temperature is less than 35.5 degrees Celsius or 95.5 degree Fahrenheit, or if the axillary temperature is of 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degree Fahrenheit. Okay, so these are the two conditions. Next, how to treat the hypoglycemia. Means hypoglycemia is the condition where BSL is less than 54. Then if it is asymptomatic hypoglycemia, we'll give 50 ml of 10% glucose or sucrose solution orally if the child is taking orally, or by nasogastric tube followed by first feed. So we will give 50 ml of 10% glucose. Then feed with the starter F75, that is formula 75, which we'll see in next slides. Then every 2 hourly, day and night, you have to feed the child with starter formula. So this is for asymptomatic patient. If the hypoglycemia is symptomatic, we'll give 10% glucose IV at the rate of 5 ml per kg. So in case of asymptomatic patient, we have given it orally or with nasogastric tube, and the rate was 50 ml of 10% glucose. But if it is symptomatic, we are giving it IV 10% glucose at the rate of 5 ml per kg. Then follow with 50 ml of 10% dextrose or sucrose solution by nasogastric tube, similar with the asymptomatic treatment. And again same, feed with starter formula every 2 hourly, day and night, and start appropriate antibiotics if needed. Okay. And how to prevent the hypoglycemia? So you have to feed the child every 2 hourly starting immediately, and prevent the hypothermia by covering the child. Okay. Next is treatment and prevention of hypothermia. So for preventing the hypothermia, you have to keep the child well covered, provide skin to skin contact just like kangaroo mother care, and feed the child every 2 hourly starting immediately after admission. And to treat the hypothermia, use cloth with cover the child with warm cloths. Then head should be covered well with scarf or cap, Then provide heat. For that you can use overhead warmer or skin contact or heat convector. Then avoid rapid rewarming. Okay, this is most important. And then feed the child immediately, and if needed provide proper antibiotics. Okay. Next, prevention and treatment of dehydration, which is the third step. So here you have to assume all the severely malnourished children with watery diarrhea have some dehydration. Means if the child is coming, if the severely malnourished children is having watery diarrhea, then consider that the child is having dehydration. So here we can prevent it by giving reduced osmolarity ORS at the rate of 5 to 10 ml per kg after each watery stool, and continue breastfeeding and initiate refeeding with starter F75 formula. Okay. So for prevention, reduced osmolarity ORS, continuation of breastfeeding and initiate the refeeding. Then for treating the dehydration, again use reduced osmolarity ORS with potassium supplement. And then initiate feeding within 2 to 3 hours of starting rehydration with F75 formula on alternate hours with ORS. Okay, means one time you will give ORS and next time F75, again ORS, again F75. Okay. So these three steps, that is treatment of hypoglycemia, treatment of hypothermia and treatment of dehydration, these we have to complete it in first 2 days in stabilization phase of the treatment. Okay. So while giving ORS, remember that you have to use this reduced osmolarity ORS only, that is Risomal or comparable oral solution you can give. Here do not use standard WHO ORS solution because it contains too much of sodium and too little of potassium for severely malnourished children. Okay, so don't use standard WHO ORS, you have to use reduced osmolarity ORS. Then again do not use the IV route except in shock. Means if the child is in shock, then and then only use the IV route, otherwise give it orally, and then do so with care to avoid flooding the circulation and overloading the heart. Means you have to maintain the dosage and feed through diarrhea and continue breastfeeding. Okay. Next step is correction of electrolyte imbalance, and this we have to do throughout the phase, throughout stabilization as well as rehabilitation phase. So here in SAM patient there is excess body sodium, although there is low plasma level of the sodium. Okay, and there is deficiency of potassium and magnesium. So here we will treat hypokalemia with IV KCl, and then supplemental potassium with KCl syrup we can give. Then supplemental magnesium sulfate we are giving, and prepare meal without salt because there is excess of body sodium. So don't use salt while preparing the meal. And again, one of the most important thing is do not use a diuretic to treat the edema in case of SAM. Okay. Now, next step is treatment of infections. So here, for all the severely malnourished children, we have to give broad spectrum antibiotic. In that we can give ampicillin and gentamicin, or instead of ampicillin we can use amoxicillin, and instead of gentamicin we can use amikacin also. So this combination we are giving broad spectrum antibiotic, ampi and genta, and then measles vaccine to all the children who are more than 6 months of age. Give vitamin A supplements. Again give antihelminths that is mebendazole you can give 100 milligram BD for 3 days, and consider HIV and TB and do the testing accordingly. Okay, so for every child, every severely malnourished child, you have to give broad spectrum antibiotics. Then if the child is more than 6 months, vaccinate it with measles and vitamin A and provide antihelminths. Okay. Next is correction of micronutrient deficiencies. So, all severely malnourished children have vitamin and mineral deficiencies. So, we have to give zinc, copper and multivitamin daily to the child, and vitamin A and folic acid on day 1. And remember here, do not give iron until the child has a good appetite and starts gaining weight. Usually during the 2nd week of treatment, we'll start the iron. So in 1st week, means in stabilization phase, don't give iron. So in stabilization phase, we are giving vitamin A and folic acid on day 1, and other micronutrients like zinc, copper and multivitamin daily we will give. And usually the dosage is up to twice the recommended daily allowance, that is twice the RDA we are giving the micronutrients. Okay. Next, 7th step is cautious feeding. Here we have to start feeding as soon as possible as frequent small feeds. We can give it orally if possible, and if the child is not accepting it orally, we can start it with nasogastric tube. It may include electrolyte or mineral solution. Along with feed, we can give this. So again here one more important point is the diet or the feed should be low in protein and iron, and it should be high in energy. As we know, this protein energy malnutrition, so it is more on the calorie deficit, and the protein deficit is marginal or no deficit. So the feed should be low in protein and iron. As in previous slide we have seen, for first 7 days we won't give iron, and the feed should be high in energy. So again small frequent feeds we are giving. So here total fluid recommended is 130 ml per kg per day. Then continue breastfeeding and start with F75 every 2 hourly, as we have seen while treating hypoglycemia and hypothermia. And if there is persistent diarrhea, we have to give cereal based low lactose F75. And if diarrhea continues on low lactose diet F75, then lactose free diet will give. Okay. Next step is rebuilding the tissues or catch up growth. This will start from the 2nd week, that is in rehabilitation phase. So here what we will do, so here the child's appetite is regained. So you can increase the volume at each feed and decrease the frequency of feed to 6 feeds per day. So previously, means in stabilization phase, we were giving the feed every 2 hourly, and that was 130 ml per kg per day. Now in rehabilitation phase, we are increasing the volume of the feed at each feed and decreasing the frequency of feed. Okay. Here we can increase the volume up to 150 to 200 ml per kg per day. Okay, and divided in 3 to 4 hours. Means previously we are given 2 hourly, so here we can give 3 to 4 hours. Then gradual transition from F75 to F100 diet. So from formula 75, which is starter formula, from 2nd week we'll start it with F100, that is formula 100 diet. And advanced to local foods like peanut butter, beans, margarine, which are energy dense local foods, or other energy dense local foods also we can give in this phase. Okay. Next is stimulation, play and loving care. This we have to do throughout the treatment, that is throughout the rehabilitation as well as stabilization phase. So to the child we have to give tender and loving care, and again you can play some of the stimulation games and physical activity with child as soon as the child is well enough, at least 15 to 30 minutes per day. We have to play with the child. You have to keep a cheerful and stimulating environment for the child. Encourage mother's involvement in this. And if the child's weight is 90% of the expected weight for height, then you can discharge the child. Okay. Next is preparation for discharge. Means while discharging the child, these things we have to remember. So first one, give nutritional education to the mother or caretaker. This is very important. Here we can teach the mother about formula feed or energy dense feed. We can give then how to maintain the hygiene while preparing the feed, how to feed the child, and what are the requirements of the child as per the age. We can teach her. Then advice regarding immunization. So while discharging, make sure that the child is fully immunized as per the age, and at home what care they have to take, and advise them when to follow. Okay. So here we have seen these F75 and F100. So what are these F75 and F100? So these are the therapeutic diets. So milk based formulas are there. F75, F stands for formula and 75 stands for the kilocalories which that feed is providing, or which that therapeutic diet is providing. So F75 is also called as starter formula. It provides 75 kilocalories of energy per 100 gram, and proteins 0.9 gram of protein it is providing. Then F100, that is formula 100, it is also called as catch-up formula. It provides 100 kilocalories. From here we can know 100 is for 100 kilocalories it is providing, and it is providing about 2.9 grams of protein. Then F135, that is formula 135, it is also a catch-up formula. It provides about 135 kilocalories and 3.3 gram of protein per 100 gram of that formula. Okay. So this F75, also called as starter formula, it is used during the initial management of the malnutrition. So also called as starter formula, beginning as soon as possible and continuing for 2 to 7 days until the child is stabilized. Means we have seen in stabilization phase, we are starting with the F75. Then in severely malnourished children, it cannot tolerate the normal amount of potassium and sodium or high amounts of fat. So this F75 is specially prepared and it is mixed to meet the child's needs without overwhelming the body system in the initial stage of the treatment. So this contains 75 kilocalories and 0.9 gram of protein per 100 ml. Then again we have seen as soon as the child is stabilized on F75, we are shifting it to F100, that is catch-up formula to rebuild the wasted tissues. And the F100, it contains more calories, that is 100 kilocalories, and protein is 2.9 gram of protein per 100 ml. Okay. So there can be a short note on this F75 or F100. Now, what are the criteria for discharge? Now, we have treated the child, we have seen the 10 steps of treating the child. So, when to discharge the child? So, the criteria are, if the child's weight for height, if it is reached to -2 standard deviation of the median of WHO standards, means the child has come out from the severe malnourished phase. If the child is eating adequate amount of nutritious food that mother can prepare at home, if there is consistent weight gain, that we can plot on the growth chart and see the progress of the weight gain. If it is consistent, then we can discharge the child. Again, all vitamin and mineral deficiencies have been treated, means all the micronutrients we have given to the child, and there is no any sign and symptom of vitamin or mineral deficiency, then we can discharge the child. If infections and other complications have been treated or being treated with the help of antibiotics, then immunization is initiated. Okay. And on the part of mother or caretaker, if she is able to take care of the child, if she is able to prepare appropriate food and feed the child, and has been trained to give structured play therapy and sensory stimulation, and she knows how to give home treatment for common problems and recognizes the danger signs warranting immediate medical assistance. So, she should be able to give the home treatment for common problems like for fever or for diarrhea. She can use homemade ORS, and again she can recognize the danger signs warranting the immediate medical assistance. So, if these criteria are there, then we can discharge the child from the facility based care. Okay. Next, now coming to the community-based treatment. As we have seen, the WHO and UNICEF has given the two approaches for the treatment. The first approach was facility-based treatment of the SAM, which we have seen right now. And now coming to the second, that is community-based treatment. So, the evidence is there which shows that 80% of the SAM cases, they can be managed at home. Means very few SAM patients will require the facility based treatment. And this community based treatment, it can be given through active case finding, sensitization and mobilizing of the communities. Okay. So here we have to timely detect the SAM patients, means what we are doing in the Anganwadi, growth charts are maintained. So on growth chart, we'll see the weight and height of the child, whether it is increasing or it is stagnant or it is decreasing. So depending on that graph or curve, we can detect the SAM. If the mid upper arm circumference goes below 11.5 centimeter, means the child is going in SAM. Then assessment for acute respiratory infections, dehydration and fever as per the IMNCI, that is integrated management of neonatal and childhood illnesses. So as per that, we will assess the child for these infections. And then feeding the child with RUTF, then follow up and provision of RUTF on weekly basis, and oral medications we are giving if necessary. So first and most important thing is timely detection of the SAM. Okay. And if the SAM is there and if it is with complication, we'll admit it to the facility based treatment. So what is this RUTF, which is used in community based management? So in facility based management, we have used F75 and F100. But in community based management, we are using this ready to use therapeutic food. So what is this? So this is an edible lipid based paste that is energy dense, resistant to bacterial contamination, and requires no cooking. So it requires no cooking, so it is ready to use. And therapeutic food, because it is a lipid based paste that is energy dense, and we are using this to treat the protein energy malnutrition. So it is called as therapeutic food, means as a therapy we are using this. As it is packed, ready pack is there, so it is resistant to bacterial contamination while handling it. So it has two forms, like one is lipid based spread, such as plumpy nut. You can see in this picture, this child is eating this plumpy nut, and one another form is there in the form of biscuit bar, such as BP100. The most widely used RUTF, it is a high energy and high protein peanut based paste which is approved by the WHO, and it is mixture of milk powder, sugar, vegetable oil, peanut butter, vitamins and minerals. Okay. So what are the advantages of this RUTF? So it is soft and crushable, so the child can eat it very easily. It can be easily consumed by the children of more than 6 months of age without adding water. Then its composition is similar to the F100. So it can be a MCQ question like RUTF composition is like F100 or F75. So it is like F100, means providing 100 kilocalories and 2.9 grams of protein. So here no water is there, so can be stored without refrigeration, and there will be no growth of microorganisms, means water component is not there. It can be consumed at home directly from the container, means there is no need to cook it. So the SAM patient of 10 to 15 kg of a child over a period of 6 to 8 weeks. Okay, means the SAM child can gain the weight of 10 to 15 kg. Okay. Now coming to the nutritional rehabilitation. So here in Nagar district, we have this nutritional rehabilitation center, that is NRC. You can visit it. So main aim of the rehabilitation is prevention of the relapse. Means we will prevent the child from coming back to the SAM or malnourished stage. Okay, so this is main aim of the rehabilitation, and it involves the teaching the mother about correct feeding practices and teaching her the skills to take care of the child. And it can be done in 3 settings, like in residential units, daycare center and domiciliary rehabilitation. So in residential units, so the mother will go to that residential unit, and there she will be taught about these correct feeding practices, various feeding formulas, and various skills to take care of the child, like some of the home remedies to treat the infections or some of the warning signs we can taught her. Again in daycare center we can do the same thing, and in domiciliary rehabilitation the health worker will go to the child's house, and he or she will guide the mother accordingly. Okay. So this is the summary of this lecture. Here the community based or facility based screening of the child we are doing. like examining the for presence of edema, measuring the weight for height and mid upper arm circumference. So here, if the weight for height, if it is more than or equal to -2 standard deviation, and mid upper arm circumference if it is more than 12.5 millimeter, means in green color on Shakir tape, and if the child is without edema, we will classify it as non-acutely malnourished. So we will take preventive measures to prevent it from getting the malnourishment, like we'll give nutrition education, immunization, vitamin A supplementation, anti-helminths, and schedule for next screening. Okay. Next is, if weight for height, if it is less than -2 standard deviation and more than -3 standard deviation, means between -2 to -3 standard deviation, or mid upper arm circumference is less than 12.5 millimeter but more than 11.5 millimeter, means in yellow color, and if the edema is not there, we will classify it into MAM, that is moderate acute malnutrition. So here we will be giving supplementary feeding program like RUTF, fortified cereals or dietary counseling, then vitamin A supplementation, then anti-helminths, iron supplement, and nutrition education we will give. Then next is, if the weight for height is less than -3 standard deviation, or mid upper arm circumference if it is less than 11.5 centimeter, and adequate appetite is there, and if there is the edema may or may not be present, here we will classify the child into SAM without complications, and we will treat the child in OPD, that is outpatient therapeutic feeding program. Here we are giving ready to use therapeutic feed, then antibiotics, malaria treatment, then providing anti-helminths, providing the measles vaccination, vitamin A supplementation, and nutritional education. So this was SAM without complication. Next possibility is weight for height, if it is less than -3 standard deviation, mid upper arm circumference less than 11.5 centimeter, that is in red zone, and if there is poor appetite or edema. So here we will classify it as SAM with complications. SAM without complication, it was with adequate appetite and edema or no edema. But here the appetite is poor and edema is there. So here is SAM with complication, and this patient we will treat in facility based treatment. We will give here inpatient therapeutic feeding center, we are admitting the child. So treat the complications, then give antibiotics like AMPI and Genta, then treatment of malaria, then providing therapeutic milk formula, first F75 and then switch to F100, then anti-helminths like mebendazole 100 mg BD for 3 days, then measles vaccination, vitamin A supplementation, and nutrition education. After that we will be again assessing the child, and if the complications are improved, there is improved appetite, then transfer it to the outpatient treatment program and treat accordingly. Okay, and if there is again appearance of complication or loss of appetite, again we will be moving it to the inpatient therapeutic feeding center. Okay, and if the MAM patient, that is moderate acute malnutrition, if there is deterioration of the nutritional status, so we will treat it as SAM without complications. Okay, so this is summary of this lecture.